Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Name the dog, Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints?
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my two-parter friend Frank. How are you today?
Dairy. Legendary.
Ooh, two-parter. Good.
Yeah.
Are you feeling legendary?
Maybe. It would have been better if I had started, like last episode, if I had said legend and left it there and then picked up with dairy. But that was the first thing that came to mind when you said two-parter. So, yeah.
Well, that's slightly misleading because we're not talking about Neil Patrick Harris at all.
I was misinformed.
Okay, we can redo this. Hi, welcome to Beer with Geeks, where one geek geeks out with beer because his co-host is forgetful. I'm Tim, and with me is no one. All right.
I thought I was Tim.
Ooh boy, we're in for a long night.
Very forgetful.
Frank, what are you drinking tonight?
Hi, absinthe, apparently. No, I am enjoying this is silly. But I am enjoying just a plain old Sam Adams Boston Lager.
Wow. That is actually silly.
Straightforward. Okay, thanks for validating me.
You're welcome.
Just straightforward and just everything that it should be.
Oh, that's good. I mean, it is good. It is good. I always prefer their seasonals to the regular lager.
Yeah, I tend to do that as well. But
I think Sam also prefers their seassonals to the
that's
regular.
true. That's true. Yeah. It would seem that way. They have so many. Like, they have more than you even realize. They've got like hundreds of different like seasonals and like regional variants and things like that. It's really interesting. But
that's fair. It's good.
Neither here nor there. What are you drinking?
I am drinking a therapy session IPA because we're going to need it with today's conversation from the Entitled Beer Company.
Oh, yeah, I've had Entitled.
Entitled is a local beer from Massachusetts. They're quite good. I was given this just a couple of weeks ago, and I can only describe it as a creamy hop. Which is something that you don't think go together, but this beer is so good. They go together so well. So if you can get your hand on a therapy session IPA from the Entitled Beer Company, I would get some.
All right.
Immediately.
Awesome. I feel like I think I've had it. That can looks very familiar. And I feel like maybe I had it with you, or I don't know if it does look very familiar.
I'm not sure where you would have had it. I don't think you ever had it with me.
Okay.
Unless somebody else brought it.
Right.
Because when I was given this last time I had a beer with you, I was a few days away from having this, actually.
Okay.
So, there we are.
Okay.
1, 2, there you go. Now, Frank, this is a two-parter.
Yes, sir.
Last week we talked about Infinity War, and by we talked about Infinity War, I mean we talked about Thanos.
Yeah, pretty much.
For a half an hour. And so I thought it should be time that we go back and talk about the rest of the movie.
So use the time stone and go back and talk about the rest of the movie instead.
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying? Okay.
I mean, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Got
we have to do a Zatanna mix universe and say everything backwards.
Oh, that's going to be Tolkifid.
Difficult?
Tlukafid. Uh-huh.
Nice. Nice job. I'll leave it at that. I'm not
Snaff.
All right. So anyway, I thought that we should just kind of break down different different groups of characters because they all kind of merge together at one point, or not really, but at different points. But I thought we could kind of just take like the Titan crew and the Wakanda crew, and the that's about it. Those two crews. There aren't really three spaces. Or we could take like the Avengers, the non-Avenging characters, and the Guardians. We could do it that way too.
Yeah. Okay. That works.
The Secret Avengers, the regular Avengers, and the Guardians.
Yep.
And the non-Avengers. There's so many ways to do this, Frank. Let's start off with Iron Man, because he's the first... Well, technically, he's not the first Avenger, but he is the first superhero in the MCU lineup of films, but not in the timeline. Anyway, we're going to start with Iron Man, because I think Tony has the most to do this film.
Yeah. The most out of the rest of the characters? Like, I
think so.
Yeah. I mean, I would argue Thor kind of does more. But your point is your point. I understand your point.
Thor might be more effective when it comes to battling things.
Yeah.
But I think that the I don't know, actually, now that maybe slightly equal, because most of these characters don't really have arcs in this film, right? They have they have little moments, but you can't give everybody something to do. We talked about this last episode, so it's Thanos that gets everything to do. Really,
this all happens over the course of like a few hours, a day or two, maybe, right? Like it all happens really quickly. So it's like, how much of an arc can somebody have in a 2-day period?
That's true. I would even hazard to say 2 days. I think it's definitely
2 is probably being generous.
I think it's a day,
a
couple hours. If you look at the growth of Thanos' hair and stubble over the course of the film, it's probably like an 8-hour period, maybe 10 or 12, if his hair grows at a normal rate.
At one point, at the end of the film, Thanos says something about. I mean, it's not quite this way. I'm paraphrasing it badly, but he says something like, "You have no idea, like the kind of day I've had," and basically saying like this has all been a day.
Yep.
So
which begs the question: what was he doing this whole time, floating in his chair? If he could just grab all the Infinity Stones,
the timing had to be right. The timing had to be just right.
Indeed. But anyway, so
Tony.
So let's start with Tony. Even though he's not the first Avenger to pop up in the film, Tony gets sucked out of his run with Pepper, where he's like, "I had a dream we were gonna have a kid," and the whole audience went, "Oh no!"
Mm-hmm.
But that never really comes to fruition anywhere. I wonder if it will
in part 2.
Well,
I kind of wonder if I see. I really thought going into this film that either Tony or Cap or both would die. And
I didn't think that at all.
I was shocked that they both made it out alive. You maintained, and I think you may be right, that if anything, they would die in part 2. One or both of them might die in part 2. If it's going to happen, it would happen in part 2, not part 1.
That's right.
And at this point, I think you're right. I can't see how we leave this series of events and both of them are still alive. Like, I just can't see how that happens. Partly it's because I know that there's contractual things happening, but that could be misdirection. We don't know for sure. So I was shocked that he was still alive at the end of the film. When he apparently died before Doctor Strange made the trade, I was like, okay, this is sad, but it has to happen. Like, I get it. Like, I see where we're going with this. So that was one thing that I thought. So when talking about having kids, I thought that was like foreshadowing that he was going to die. Usually when people are talking about happy things at the beginning of a movie, things don't end so well.
It means they're gonna. It is true, but that's a good misdirect, because I think they know that we know that.
Yeah.
And even if you don't know that, it's still like, oh, he got stabbed.
Right.
So, but I can't remember where we've talked about this, whether it was last episode or this episode, but and many people have said it before, so this will be a rehash, but Doctor Strange saw 14 million some odd outcomes, and there's that symmetry aspect of the film where he's like, I'm not gonna give you. It's the same idea of the baby, like Tony dying setup where
Yep.
I will not hesitate to let you die while I save the Infinity Stone. I'm going to save you and give him the Infinity Stone because we know that's the only outcome that he saw.
Yep, exactly.
Where that's a possibility. Somebody raised a good question to me today, actually, where if the Ancient One in Doctor Strange could not see past her death, then how could Doctor Strange see past his death? Because he disintegrates anyway. And so I thought, well, that's an interesting point, but I wonder if the one version in which he saw 14 million outcomes in which everybody died, including him, and that's where the vision ends. But maybe the one where they win, he disintegrated but came back, and so he was able to reestablish that vision.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, or because he was using the time stone, and maybe the Ancient One wasn't using the time stone. So
sure,
who knows? Who knows? Is it? But it was an interesting question. Interesting question. What did you think of Iron Man's armor in this movie?
I thought it was really cool. I love the nanotech explanation for everything and how it can sort of rebuild itself, or at any point, except at the end when he was going up against Thanos, and it was even the nanotech was exhausted and couldn't keep up with the fight. I thought that was really cool. I like the armor. I always like the armor. There's the only one that I didn't care for was the one in Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't. It's too much gold.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of gold. I don't like it. It doesn't feel like Iron Man when there's that much gold hanging on him.
Yeah.
It's even when Iron Man's a different color besides gold, it still feels like Iron Man. That one just felt so ostentatious for whatever reason.
Yeah, it was too much. It was too different.
Yeah, but that's okay. Well, that's good. Do you? I don't know how to phrase this question, so I guess I just won't ask it. Maybe I'll come back later.
Okay.
His relationship with Spider-Man, Tony's relationship with Spider-Man.
Paternal.
Do you think that scene would have had as much impact if he was not in Spider-Man Homecoming?
Absolutely not. Would not be the same. Would not be the same. Because, I mean, if we had him, Spider-Man pop up in Civil War, then have Homecoming without Tony in it, and then have this, there's no, even if you sort of allude to it and say oh yeah, I've been mentoring him or whatever, that's fine, but they showed us instead of telling us, and I think that they did the right thing, and that was a good storytelling. So it absolutely had more impact. And they sowed the seeds throughout the film so that when Peter first showed up, Tony's telling him, "Get out of here, kid. We don't. This is too much for you. This is above your pay grade." When he's on the ship, he tries to send him back to Earth. At every turn, it's not until he literally has no choice that he's like, "Fine, you're an Avenger. Here you go. I'm knighting you." Only then is he giving in, and even then, he's got this reluctant look on his face, like, "I'm going to regret this," and he does. He does regret it.
Mm-hmm. I read today that the reason that Spider-Man takes longer to disintegrate is one, he has the spider sense, so he can feel his death coming, whereas everybody else doesn't really sense it the same way. But because he can sense it, he's also able to will himself to not disintegrate.
Oh, so he can delay it by a few seconds by
that's right.
By sheer force of will.
By sheer force of will, he made a good Green Lantern, but he just can't he just can't fight that power. But that's why he takes longer than other characters.
That would be an interesting topic for us someday. All these heroes, all these actors recast as Justice League members.
Ooh, that would be an interesting topic. I'd be down
and
for
not
that.
not just doing things like equating Captain America's the Superman, not like that, the actor.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Because I like Chris Evans a lot, but I don't want to see him as Superman.
Not quite. No.
No, it'd be fine, but it wouldn't be right.
Right. Yeah.
Right. I know exactly what you mean. That would be a very interesting experiment. Perhaps one for a future episode, definitely, but probably not next week. Anyway, let's continue on. That's really interesting. I liked how this film has little payoffs for almost everything that the characters say and do. So even though they don't have arcs, they have little moments of kind of full circleness.
Yes.
So Drax, even I think I said this to you earlier, Drax has this great joke in the film where he's watching Gamora and Peter kiss, and he's like, "I've mastered the art of standing perfectly still. You cannot see me. Hi, Drax," and all of that. But then when he disintegrates, he is literally standing perfectly still. Like some characters are in movement and they're doing this or that and the other thing. He is perfectly still as he literally becomes invisible, evaporates, disintegrates, whatever. I thought that was very cool. The Vision gets to stab the guy who stabbed him with the same spear that stabbed him. That's things like that. I enjoy those characters. James Gunn said that Groot's last word is "Dad" as he's staring at Rocket. Mm-hmm.
So sad.
Those kind of that. I think this movie is smart because it thinks every single one of these things out.
Yes. Well, I mean, you could argue that really the MCU has been very good at that almost since the start. I mean, not everything has been intentional. When they made Iron Man, they weren't planning out the MCU quite yet. Mm-hmm. But someone was thinking about it, because that's why we have the thing at the end with the Avengers Initiative, with Nick Fury popping up. So the idea was around of like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did an Avengers movie someday? But even in that sense, even though it wasn't fully fleshed out, here's a blueprint, we're doing this, the fact that they were thinking about it, considering it, joking about it even, or even if it was just meant to tease us, like imagine if there was no imagine if Iron Man was a flop, didn't do well, or it was even a moderate success, and there was that tease at the end for the Avengers Initiative, right? Mm-hmm. And it just never came to fruition. It'd be like, oh man, like remember when they kind of teased us with that, or remember what might have been, what could have been. Even with that, they were thinking about it. They were thinking things through. So on a macro level, they're almost always thinking things through to some level, and on a micro level, even with little things like Drax standing still when he disintegrates, like that's such a small thing, but if you're looking for it, you'd spot it.
Actually, I just finished this book called Slugfest, which is about the battle between DC and Marvel, or the rivalry between the two companies.
I'm like more than halfway through it, and I'm really enjoying it.
Great. So you're going to get to the modern era, basically, where they start talking about films, and the book says that the pitch for because the line in the sand was always Iron Man wasn't supposed to be part of a grander interconnected universe, but they actually got the money from Merrill Lynch by pitching interconnected films leading to Avengers. So that's if what the book says is true, then I think they said like, if Iron Man works, we'll do that.
Yeah. So
but if it doesn't,
that's
it's just a fun tag. So but the point from the beginning was to connect them.
That is different than what I had heard up until now.
Me too. That's it. It was so different from what I had heard. But I mean, George Lucas said he also had all the Star Wars mapped in his head.
Right.
And we know that's not true either.
Well, I had 18 films. I wanted to make 18 films. There was going to be 6 trilogies.
Yep, exactly. So George Lucas is pretty good. It's pretty good.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Needs more neck parasite, but it's...
I was going to make a joke about the parasite, but George Lucas is such a nice person. Like, I'm like having a hard time like bringing myself to make fun of him.
I know, it's hard. Were there any sort of more minor characters or villains in particular, but I guess really any characters that you were kind of surprised to see them pull in here, like the Children of Thanos or any specific ones of those? Is there anybody that sort of surprised you of like, wow, they went there with that?
Well, I think the Black Order surprised me quite a bit because you could tell what parts they had to play. They didn't feel generic, and they were a threat and a force unto themselves. Like, it took Spider-Man, Wong, Doctor Strange, and Iron Man just to subdue two of them, and they didn't even beat them in that moment.
Yeah.
And the only reason they got a leg up on Ebony Maw is because they were able to surprise him on his own turf.
Sure.
Because of Alien, a great movie. So
that whole sequence was really fun.
It was tons of fun.
Yeah.
So they really surprised me. They felt, even though they didn't have tons of screen time, they felt like authentic threats and characters, and I enjoyed that quite a bit. I think if anybody in the MCU who's a secondary character who's had a really true arc from one film to the next, it's the Scarlet Witch.
Yes.
She's had from Ultron to Civil War.
Excuse me, I don't know who that is. I think you mean Wanda. There's no Scarlet Witch. No.
They don't call her Scarlet Witch?
No, remember they couldn't get the rights to the name because doesn't that name technically still lie with Fox?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that those two characters.
Well, I know that but it might be like a scroll thing or whatever where they can use both of them.
I don't think they've called her Scarlet Witch at all at any point in these films. I think they've always called her just Wanda. Kind of conspicuously, she doesn't have a superhero nickname. I'm pretty sure.
That's a great observation. I know they never called Quicksilver.
No, they never called him Quicksilver, and I don't think they've ever called her Scarlet Witch. They're just like, she's Wanda. He's fast and she's weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's a shame. It is kind of weird that she doesn't have a hero name. I've never really... I guess when you know who they are, because the Avengers are kind of known for calling each other, like they call each other by their real names. They don't...
Right.
No one ever goes, Iron Man, help!
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because like the Justice League would 10 out of 10 times, like when they're in costume and they're like going up against villains, they would call it like Wonder Woman, come over here, like Martian Manhunter, do this, like whatever. Maybe they would call Martian Manhunter Jean, but like otherwise they're calling each other by their superhero name because like we have to preserve the secret identities. But you're right, the Avengers like don't, and I guess that's like a Marvel sensibility, right? Is like being a little more real, and like you would call your coworker by their name, not by like their title or whatever.
That's true, but I guess but those nicknames you could equate to something like fighter pilots who have their nicknames and whatever else, and you call them that name because they're on duty or something like that.
Yeah.
But it depends on the character, because most people don't call Steve Rogers Steve or Rogers; they call him Cap.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But it's always Tony. Hulk is referred to individually because he's his own person, apart from Bruce. Thor is just Thor. Maybe it's most of them really don't have secret identities, and I think that's actually a part of it.
Okay.
Spider-Man has a secret identity. The rest of them really don't. Even Doctor Strange doesn't, as in this film, you get a joke about it, like, oh, Doctor Strange, we're using our made-up names. He doesn't, Doctor Strange is just Doctor Strange, that's just his name.
Yeah, I know he's not in this film, but Scott Lang Ant-Man is kind of, it's a secret. I
would say that one's a secret.
That one's a secret. But you're right, most of them really don't.
But they don't call him that in the field.
Right.
Because he's not in the film.
Yes.
Yeah, but isn't that they just talk about them with their names,
That's
which it's fun. Anyway, what was the original? Oh, Wanda. So she's had this real progression where you've seen her powers really start to escalate. So by the time she gets on the field in Wakanda and just obliterates that massive machine that looks like it belongs in the Phantom Menace, along with the shield. Along with the shield on the grass.
Everything about that battle, everything about that Wakanda battle
was Phantom Menace. It was Phantom Menace.
It was. It was Naboo.
Mm-hmm. Which is fine. That's a good part of that movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then we get, like, why wasn't she out here this whole time? But even with, like, as soon as she leaves, Vision's attacked. So you have a reason why she wasn't even there the whole time.
Totally.
But I like that as a secondary character, she has, she has a little progression. Rhodey has a little bit of a progression, when he's talking to Thunderbolt Ross. There are for the most part, I feel like every character is served. Black Widow gets a moment.
She's a little underused, though. I feel like Cap and his crew are underused.
The Russo brothers said if you felt like if one of your Avengers was underused, they're used more in the next one.
Yes.
So whereas Iron Man and Thor had more to do this time around, you're going to get, I think, more Cap and Widow and Hawkeye the next time.
That's great.
And Hulk, arguably.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Can I ask a dumb question that I should know the answer to?
Yes.
I know they shot parts 1 and 2 back to back.
Yes.
Do the Russos direct part 2?
Yes.
Good.
Yep. Just back to back. It was like one big fan film fest.
Yep.
I guess.
Yep.
Everybody was hanging. What did you think of Hulk's superhero equivalent of erectile dysfunction?
I know, right?
Yeah.
I was kind of like, get over it, you big baby. Like, come on.
It wasn't
I don't
think
really.
It was Banner. I really think it's Hulk.
I think so too, and that's why I'm saying get over it, you big baby, because it would be like, not being able to perform if it were Banner that was having the problem. Like, I can't make it happen. But like, it's not. It's Hulk saying no, actively refusing. It's an active refusal. So the interpretation I've been hearing from lots of people, and I tend to agree with, is he's never experienced defeat before, like he did at the hands of Thanos at the beginning of the film, and he's either like a wounded puppy or he's embarrassed
pouting.
or he's pouting, and I'm just like, just get the universe is ending here, like step up, dude.
Hulk doesn't care about those kinds of things.
I know, but it's so, that's what's so infuriating about it. It's how can you not care? That's why I'm infuriated.
That's great. I love that. That's a great theory. That's awesome. I had a thought this morning. Now that T'Challa is evaporated, that makes Shuri the Black Panther.
It would.
If she's still around.
I feel like she must be, though. Otherwise, we would have seen her go.
I think we would have seen her. We saw the characters go. Yeah. So if we didn't see them, they're still around.
I've been hearing a lot of people saying, like, oh, I wonder if Hawkeye is gone, or I wonder if Ant-Man is gone. It's like, if they were, we would know.
We would. I agree. Yep.
They would have been like a mid-credits thing or something with them disappearing.
Right. If they showed us Maria Hill and Nick Fury disappearing, you would see Hawkeye, Ant-Man, and the Wasp disappear.
I would argue that we know every like significant person who has disappeared as a part of this, we know about. Mm-hmm. Right. There's not going to be like a we show up in part 2 and it's like, oh, we forgot to tell you, but Nova Prime got disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Oops.
I think it's pretty much stated that Ant-Man and the Wasp takes place before Infinity War.
I'd heard that. I wasn't sure if that was for sure or if that was a theory or what. But yeah, I had heard that.
So it's very possible that the Wasp or Ant-Man disappear, like it leads directly into that moment,
which I would like. I would like seeing the after the snap stuff happen in the either at the end of the film or in the end credits sting or whatever.
I agree. There's a part of me that doesn't want either of them to disappear, because if they're in Avengers 4, I think Ant-Man and Hawkeye are confirmed for Avengers 4. But if Wasp is in Avengers 4, that means that the original Avengers are left from the films and the original Avengers from the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get literally the original team that people have been reading for decades.
I think we'll see that
on screen together.
I think we'll see that
too.
for at least a chunk of the film, like maybe one big battle sequence or something. And then I do think that someone Someone big is going to die at the end of, like, someone has to pay. Like, some price needs to be paid at the end of all of this.
I agree. In the Infinity War storyline, Nebula wears the gauntlet.
Yes, I have heard that. I haven't read it. I now I really want to. But yes, I have heard that she ends up being the one who sort of defeats Thanos in the end.
And then everyone's got to kind of team and defeat Nebula. And that would make her arc very interesting, considering that she's in a completely different state because she and Gamora have finally kind of made up.
Yeah.
And recognizing the goodness in one another, and then Gamora dies. And so she's in a who knows what state she's in at this point. Her father just murdered half the universe.
Yeah, I would kind of hate to see her go, like, swing back to being bad again, because her redemption arc has been really cool for me to watch. So I'd hate to see her become the villain again. But I would like to see her take out Thanos. I think that would be pretty badass.
I agree. Now, Frank, we're basically out of time, so I want to end on one story, which I'm not sure if I told you this or not. I'm pretty sure I did. Last April, I was in Scotland, and I came in from Newcastle on the train into Edinburgh, and I was pulling into the station. There was a movie set all up with big green screens and all of this stuff, and I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. A day later, I discover that on the Golden Mile, no less, that that they were filming Avengers at that very point in time, and I didn't know who was there or what they were doing or anything like that. So I was literally in the place where Cap and Black Widow and Falcon show up to save Vision and the Scarlet Witch from the Black Order.
That's so cool. You never told me that.
No? Oh, yeah. So
that's so cool.
I was in the same place. I was actually in all the places they were in that film, actually.
Wow.
Every place they were in Scotland, apart from the fancy hotel room, I was there.
Wow.
The church, the Edinburgh station.
I was gonna say the train station where Cap shows up.
The train, yep, that's where I came right into. I was like, and so I actually saw some of the people that I was with on that trip today. A lot of stuff happened today, and apparently, and they were all like, "Did you see Infinity War? And did you see the fact that we were right there where they were at the same time?" Because we all knew they were because we met somebody on the crew.
Gotcha.
Who was just having dinner with his wife, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we're working on Avengers. I can't tell you anything about it, but it's super fun. It's going to be great." Blah blah blah. And so yeah,
so
I thought that
cool.
was really cool.
That's really cool.
Anyway, Frank, we could probably talk about Infinity War tons more, but I think it's going to be in about 3 months' time when we do a commentary on it.
Yes, please sign me up for that.
Exactly. Okay, so. With that being said, you can find us online at beerwithgeeks.com, Facebook, Gmail, and Twitter at beerwithgeeks. You can rate and review us on iTunes. Please do so. You can find us on patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio if you'd like to support all of our Thought Bubble audio endeavors. You can check Frank out at DragonCon this year at Stark Expo. Frank, why don't you tell them a little bit about that?
If you like charity, if you like helping people, if you want to help people who don't have water get clean drinking water, generosity.org is the charity we will be benefiting from this event. Stark Expo Live, September 1st at Switchyards in Atlanta. StarkExpoLive.eventbrite.com is where you can buy tickets. Like I said, all the proceeds over and above the cost of the event itself will go straight to generosity.org, helping people to get clean drinking water, building wells, that kind of thing. Brian Austin Green of 90210 and Smallville and Sarah Connor Chronicles will be there. Live podcasting with Derek Russell and Steve Glosson and Graham Hancock. I'll be there as well. Live. We'll be doing live episodes of Starkville's House of L and with Brian Austin Green and a bunch of other stuff. Dane Davenport will be providing live music. It's going to be a really, really fun time. Tickets are beginning to sell out. Our VIP tickets are already gone. So there are still general admission tickets aplenty, so be sure and check those out. StarkExpoLive.eventbrite.com is how you can do it. It goes to a good cause, and we'll be having a good time.
Cool beans. All right. Well, you can check us out on all other places that podcast can be found, including iTunes and Spotify and Satchel and Overcast and Google Play and all these other places.
All of them.
Basically, if you listen to podcasts, you can find us. So anyway, Frank, I think that's about it. And so until next time, cheers. Oh, no, I don't want to go, Mr. Ramblings. I don't want to go. Ding, ding, ding. You got to leave that in, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.